So yesterday evening, Battlebit held its big Operation Overhaul playtest, and a lot of players joined from all regions. The servers were full, or at least around 10 of them, and were more players than in the normal game, and the player count on Steam peaked at over 6,000 concurrent players, at least at the beginning of the playtest. It's been a while that the game has seen those numbers, but I think this is a good sign that the community is willing to check out the changes and is also still open for the game and interested in what's happening or in what the devs are doing. And there were also quite a few great changes and improvements. First of all, the annoying bleed mechanic is gone, so you don't need to bandage yourself anymore every time you get a scratch, and now you simply heal yourself up with bandages and you don't bleed out anymore. And when healing with the bandages, it also now shows how much health you have and how much you still need, so if you need another bandage or not. And when you are fully healed up, you have a visual effect where your screen gets a little bit brighter around the edges for a short moment that shows you, hey, you have reached maximum health. Medics can also still heal you on the go with the crate, so you can heal yourself as a medic, of course, but you can also heal others just by stretching out your arm as normally. But you can also drop the medic crate and then it heals around an area of effect, and this area of effect is also marked with a green circle, and you just step inside of it and then you get healed up automatically as a player. And this is the same for the ammo crates. You don't need to interact with them anymore and then select the ammunition you need and use up some of your field points to get this ammunition. You simply step into the yellow circle around the ammo crate and then you get resupplied automatically. This takes quite some time though, and I always felt like it takes a little bit too long, so maybe there is still some tweaking needed here, but overall it just made this whole resupplying and healing mechanics a lot more accessible and a lot easier to understand and a lot more intuitive. A mechanic I'm a bit on the fence with though is that you now use up your field points when you spawn on a squad mate. So when you select one of the green dots and you want to spawn on them, it always takes up 10 of the field points, and when you run out of these field points, you can only spawn at objectives or in your HQ. And what makes this even worse is that you cannot spawn at objectives anymore as soon as they are contested. So if there's one enemy on the objective and you have 5 friendlies, you can still not respawn at this objective anymore, and this felt a bit strange and not really fair because you're still holding this objective and you still have more players on this objective. So I'm a bit on the fence with this one. What you can do now though, which I thought was a great addition, is that you can spawn on any teammate now who is on an objective area. So when you zoom in on the map and you have these blue dots inside of an objective area, you can spawn on them now, and it doesn't have to be a squad mate, it can be any normal teammate. So this is probably a way to make up for the contested objective mechanic and to give you a different option to spawn on your teammates. But this spawn will also cost you 10 field points, of course. And what you can do is also to finally tell downed players that you are coming for a revive as a squad mate or as a medic, which makes the whole interaction between medics and the players they want to revive a lot better. And for the downed player, the screen has also changed quite a bit. First of all, you can now see which medics and which teammates are nearby and how far away they are. And you can also call for revive now, which extends your bleed out time. So you need to hold the button and then you can lie there for longer and the medic has a longer time to come to you and revive you. But of course, you can also still give up if there's too many enemies around or you don't want to wait. But the drop of bitterness here is that this takes noticeably longer now, so this time was extended, probably as an incentive to stay there and wait for the medic to revive you. What was also changed is the deploy screen. This one got a full overhaul and it's a lot more intuitive now, which makes it easier to find your way around, and it just looks more modern and more cleaned up. So the class selection and the selected loadout is more clear now. You can easier switch switch between the classes and change your loadout. You also have 3 loadouts now that you can define and then quickly switch from them. From the deploy screen, you can now also select your vehicles in the HQ, so they're not just standing around on the objective and you click on them over there. And the map and its terrain is also a lot more visible than before, so you can actually tell where you are spawning and in which part of the map and what it looks like. And when you select a spawn point, maybe one of your squad mates, you also have this little preview camera in the top right now, instead of your squad mate's camera being across the whole screen. And then when you have spawned and you are on the map, you can also finally see how the match is going on top of the screen. So you see how much time is still left, how much tickets every team has, and if your team is losing or winning. Because this is some information that was completely missing before and you always had to go to the scoreboard to see it. And I think it should be pretty clear to everyone where they took this inspiration from, because it all looks like a mix of Battlefield 2042 and Battlefield 6. But Battlebit has never tried to hide the references to Battlefield. I mean, that's basically how this whole game has grown, so it's nothing I'm really surprised of or that would bother me in any way. Quite the opposite. I'm happy they took so much inspiration and that they copied the good things from Battlefield and implemented them into their game to make it better. So there's nothing wrong about this. What the game also has now is a tactical sprint in addition to the normal sprint, but I gotta say they did implement this in a pretty good way, because the tactical sprint is not something you can trigger with the press of a button. Instead, it only starts when you sprint for a longer period of time, and this is indicated in your HUD and helps you to get around the map much faster, and also get much faster from one objective to the other, which I think makes sense considering the size of some of the maps. So it won't help you to get out of gunfights faster, for example, or on short distances. So when you try to move between buildings, for example, you still only have the normal sprint, but when you're sprinting across a field or maybe from your HQ to the first objective, you can make use of this tactical sprint. And once it got triggered, you can also basically sprint forever until you stop sprinting, then it starts all over again. And talking about gunplay, there were also some changes here. First of all, the time to kill is noticeably slower now, which is great in some situations because it allows you to react when getting shot at and you can still try to get behind cover, but sometimes it seemed a bit weird when you have to pump a full magazine into an enemy just to get one kill. So maybe this still needs a little bit of fine-tuning. Overall, I was not unhappy with the slower time to kill though, because it gave the game a pretty good pace. The weapon dispersion also seems to be higher now, because it's definitely harder to kill enemies on longer ranges with an assault rifle or a carbine, for example, which is a good thing though, because it gives you a better feel for which weapon or which weapon category works on which range and which weapon category is made for which range, so that an SMG is not built for long range sniping, and you can also not simply snipe someone across the map with an AR anymore. So I think that this is a good change as well. And overall, I got to say that the gunplay and movement felt pretty good in the playtest, for the most part at least, with only a few rough edges here and there. And the maps also played a lot better. Not only did they look better from the design and from the lighting, but they also had a much better flow. Unfortunately, I can't say much to the new map Mesa, because I only played it once, but the two redesigned maps, Valley and Kodiak, left a much better impression than they do right now in the base game. So overall, I had fun playing the playtest, at least during the moments where it worked. And that leads me to the things that were not so great. So first of all, the new lighting on the night maps was far too bright. They're so bright that some players in the chat even asked if we got the correct version of the map, and they were wondering where the night is. Because even though they are darker compared to the daylight versions, they do not actually feel like night maps. So you do not have any effect on the visibility or that you have an advantage when hiding in a dark corner. There are barely any situations where you cannot see an enemy or where you actually need a flashlight or the NVGs. I even found that with the NVGs I saw a lot less than without them, so this definitely still needs some tuning. What also looked terrible were the tracers of the bullets. You can see this here on screen in the gameplay as well. This is more reminiscent of Star Wars Battlefront than of a modern shooter game, so they definitely need to work on this one. But what was the worst and what made this playtest really hard to enjoy was the memory leak. I know this was a playtest that was made to test the performance, but it was still quite annoying because the FPS dropped into oblivion after only 10 to 15 minutes of playtime, and this was really bad because we're not talking about a drop from 200 to 150 FPS, we're talking about drops down to 1 FPS or maybe 2 or maybe 5, but it was not more. When you restarted the game, it worked for a bit, and that's also when it felt great to play, but after about 10, maybe 15 minutes, the FPS dropped noticeably, and if you kept playing after another few minutes, it became unplayable. So I had to restart my game at least after every match, if I was even able to finish the match. And this is something they definitely need to fix before the next playtest. They've done some great changes here, and I think that people are willing to come back when the devs can deliver a great experience again, because the 6,000 player peak clearly showed this, but the devs have to deliver. And they also should start to be more transparent again and communicate more openly with the community again, because they have to win back a lot of trust from their player base. Another drop of bitterness for some players with a low-end PC might be that the system requirements for the game have increased. This of course comes as a side effect of the improved graphics, lighting, destruction, audio and so on. But aside from being unplayable every 15 minutes, the playtest still gave a pretty good impression, and I would definitely hop on another one to see how the game improves. Cause not gonna lie, I did have fun playing it again, especially since it still has a much slower pace compared to Battlefield 6, which I thought was a nice change. And yeah, that was it for today. Some gameplay and impressions of the first Operation Overhaul playtest in Battlebit. And if you played as well, let me know what you think of it. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. And I'm gonna see you in the next one. I'm the Catwoman and you are awesome.